Okay. Okay. So I will, sorry for that, I will just start saying that again. So this top left menu here is kind of the most important thing that you select when you want to do different things, and there are some hotkeys for, I know for Windows, and I think you can find it by searching a little on the Mac. There are F2, F3, F4 and so on for these top left menus, and the first seven like kind of this seven first menus don't change. But if you just, for example, go for modeling, you will get mesh, edit mesh tools, let's say options to select. But for example, for rigging, it's a skeleton skin and so on. So that's it for this part. And continuing from that, I mean, if you go to file and then project window, you will see some default locations that the let's say the scenes, the images and so on are you can see, for example, it's here for me, are stored, and that shouldn't be really important. You can just go ahead with these defaults, and over here you can just start a new project. There are also other ways to change the name of your project. That's not really important, but I think it's the most standard way. So I would say I would call it test and click accept. Um, and yeah, for saving the scene, the simplest way is to just click on the save scene, and then when you just go for the save scene, you will have two options: Maya ASCII and Maya binary. And for opening the Maya scenes in different Maya versions, let's say I'm in 2022 version, maybe your friend is in 2020, I would say the ASCII is the best one between these two. But other than that, I don't think that's going to be real different. So that's one thing to consider. And there is one little problem with Maya that sometimes, I mean, while you are working, Maya just crashes, and then you will lose whatever you have done uh, from your last save. So you should go back and redo everything. So is there any question? Sorry. Okay. No. Let's just, okay. Because we are, I think, 24 now. I'm a little worried to see if there is someone coming and no one gets uh, held behind this maximum number of participants. Okay. So yeah, that's the problem, that you may lose your work. So, and also there is one another problem that for example, you do something and then you realize that it wasn't a wise choice, and you want to go back to, let's say, what you were doing in 10 minutes ago. So the undos are kind of limited in Maya by default. And if you have a powerful machine that has kind of uh, an enough kind of, let's say, RAM storage, I would recommend you to go to Windows, and then let me find it. Preferences, where was it? Yeah, it's here. Setting, preferences, and preferences. And then I believe there should be um, let me just make sure I don't find it where it is. There should be an undo. Oh yeah, it's here. Undo menu here. So for me it's infinite, but I think for you, if you haven't changed this, it's finite. So just try and see if infinite works for you or not. If it doesn't, maybe it's better to just increase it to something like 100 or 200. But I think 50 is kind of too low, because doing 50 actions is not that hard, and then you cannot go back after that. So I would just make it infinite and save. And that's one thing. The other thing is, that it's good to activate the automatic saving option that for example in each 30 minutes Maya saves a version of your scene, so that if some works are kind of lost, or even sometimes it happens that your uh, Maya saved scene is just corrupted, the file is just corrupted and you cannot open it. So for example, if your 7th edition is not working, you still have the 6th edition and you just have to do the last part instead of doing everything from the beginning. So that's also good and helpful for you. So again, going to Windows and then settings, preferences and preferences. There is, under the settings, there is a file projects menu, and over there I think for you it should be disabled but enable autosave, and 2 minutes is just too low. So for example 30 minutes I think is kind of a good option, so that you don't lose too much thing between your versions. So that should be it for this option as well. So before going forward, are there any questions?
Quick question. Was that just in the preferences window that you were looking at?
Yes, setting, preferences, and then preferences.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Are there any questions? Okay, so it seems everyone is fine. And then I think the incremental save is what you do. Uh, so it was something called test, and I said ASCII is better. So yeah, I think then after 30 minutes it will, let's say, save the next version as test 001 and then test 002 and so on. So you'll have your different versions of scenes saved there. So I think that's all for uh, kind of setting your Maya, and now we can take a look at how modeling goes. So because I think the lab is around 100 minutes, around 2 hours. So I think going forward for the character would be really fast and we would finish the lab very soon. So before going to make a snowman, I would make a snowman here, but before going forward, I would try to make a shelf, for example, and see how it goes, and then uh, we will no, sorry, not the shelf. I forgot the name. Let me just quickly say. Yeah, a closet, a big closet, and then uh, we will go for uh, making a snowman. So let's just start with a cube. So over here, if you just click, select modeling, there would be some options here. Just go for the poly modeling, and you will see these primitive shapes here: sphere, cube, cylinder, and so on. So I just click on this cube, and there are two ways in Maya that you can kind of resize or place objects in your scene. The first one is by doing with numbers. That is not going to work perfectly in all the occasions, but here, for example, if I want to have my cube, let's say in 0.235, and I will talk about what these numbers mean. But if I want to put my cube here, I will also talk how you can navigate through this thing. But yeah, I can just say I want it to be here. And what these numbers means, this is the x coordinate, this is the y coordinate, this is the z coordinate. And if you just look at this, I'm not sure if that's small on your screen or not, but if you can see this little uh, kind of coordinate system here, you can see that z is kind of along this direction. So if I say my cube I want my cube to be in 0.2, oh sorry, this one is x, sorry. So yeah, for example, if I want my x to be on the point 2 over the x-axis, I would just say 2. Or for example, I want to be on the 4, so it would come just 4 meters forward if you call this forward and this one left, and uh, the y as up. So that's one thing that you can do with placing objects. You can also scale things. So for example, I want my closet to be, let's say, 2 by 5. I think that would be okay, or maybe, yeah, 2 by 5. So that's one way to design a cube and give it some size. So that's one solution. But if you go to this, no, sorry, this menu here, you will see these options as well. So instead of just scaling things, which could be kind of ugly, you can define the width, height, and depth of your model, of your object, I mean. So I would say now I want my closet to be 2 by 4, for example. That's also one another way. And these subdivisions, I'm not sure if that's going to be kind of soon to talk about, but really simply you can see that it will make some sections for me if I put some numbers here, and then I can make it I can modify it a little more if I have more vertices, but that's going to be covered later, so I'm not going to play with that anymore. So that's one way. As I said, it's just one way to manipulate objects in the scene. And you may kind of find it hard to let's say find a number that works and suits your model, so you may need to do some work with these let's say with these arrows. If you just use these three uh, 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 kind of buttons here, you will have some control over your object. So I mean, I forgot to also talk about these rotations, but they are kind of the same as what you can think uh, as you see in the translate and scale. Sorry. So yeah, so you can just move your object or then scale it. Yeah, and that's kind of good because you can, if you want to just scale it along this axis, you can use this point here, this cube here. And if you want to scale it freely, I mean, freely means that the scale just happens along all the axes. You can select this cube in the center, and it will uh, kind of scale the whole object. And if you want to also move your object freely, you can select this cube, so this point here. And there is also one another way to uh, move your object. Let's say if you want to move your object along the XY plane, so you want the Z to be constant, but you want to kind of move it along this plane, you will see that it doesn't go forward and backward. If you see it's going kind of forward, it's not, it's just going down. That, so the Y is going a lot lower, and you kind of see, if you look at this bright menu there, you will see that it's going down, but it's not going forward. The Z is always a constant value. So these are the things that you can use to kind of uh, put, I mean, yeah, put something constant and changing the other values as you wish. So are there any questions for, it's not the same as rotation. Rotation is just always separate for each axis, so you cannot do, for example, rotation for 2 axes, but along this let's say circle that you can see, this yellow circle, you can just rotate your object as well, which is kind of rotating along all the axes. You can see in the right menu here that all the values just change when I rotate the cube. And yeah, that should be it for as an introduction to how we are kind of manipulating objects and moving and scaling them in the scene. Any question? If I went too fast, please also say that I would try to be slower. So let me open the chat. You can also type in general if you want to. Oh, in the lab, in the lecture lab feed is also, I think, better, so that I can see your comments there as well if you don't feel comfortable to talk. Okay, so if everyone is fine, let's just try to design our kind of simple closet, and then go back to, sorry, to design our maybe a snowman, and then you will have time to design and think of your character or animal and design it. Okay, so going back to my closet, I want to have a big hole in this cube. So there are many ways. So one of them is, as I said, for example, I can say I want to have these divisions here, and then I mean, in the future, I think you will see that I can kind of manipulate these faces. These small rectangles are called faces. I can, let's say, move them backward, or extrude them, kind of extrude them backward to make a hole in my cube. But uh, there is one bad thing about it, that it makes the object kind of more complex, because you are making lots of faces there, lots of vertices. These points here are the vertices in your object, and you are making it more complex. So that's not going to be the wisest kind of solution here. And what you can do is to duplicate your model here. So it's in Windows, it's uh, done either by, I think, no, it's not there. Okay, so you can just click on, I mean, press Ctrl and D, and you will have the next one. But since they are all, oh, I mean, there are these two cubes are just exactly over each other, they are having the exact same size and exact place, you cannot see that there are two. But if you just move one of them, the second one for example, you will see that we have two cubes. And here what I would do is I would scale it a little. So the only point is that it's not maybe even uh, the wisest choice as well. Maybe you can think of a uh, better solution, but I'm just saying you should try to think of easier solutions if possible. So there are always some solutions that make things a lot worse, and you will have to put so much time on doing things. So for example, uh, here it's not going to be in the, maybe in the course event, I don't know if it's going to be covered in the lectures, but I'm just showing you a trick. So selecting the first object and then second one, over here you can go to the mesh and then booleans and difference. Okay, I was thinking it's not going to work. Uh, Now you can see I have this hole in my it's a closet, and that's good because it's very simple. But there is also one downside for this work that I have done, but I'm not going to talk a lot about it. But if you just look to take a look at this face here, you will see that the line is not here. So it's kind of a big complex face. That's not a very, let's say, recommended way of modeling things. Okay, so and after that, I just want to put some levels in my closet. What I'm going to do is to make a new cube here and play a little with numbers or with the scale. And I want to show you that maybe playing uh, with the arrows here is kind of easier, because you will have more control over it. So yeah, for example, I can set it to be kind of like this, and make a level in between of uh, the roof, the floor and the roof of our ceiling of our, for example, closet. And I think I forgot to say how you are going to navigate through the scene. So by in the windows, by clicking on Alt and then clicking on the left mouse button, you can rotate in the scene around objects. And for example, if you just go somewhere and you want to rotate around your closet instead of just rotating around nothing in the scene or around a bad object, you can just click on your object and click F. Oh, sorry, I should change. Click F, and then it's kind of focusing on the object that you want to take a look at, and then now you can rotate around it. So that's one thing. And also there are some hotkeys for the rotation, scaling, and moving. So I think W is moving, the translation move tool. E is for rotation, and R is for a scale, but I don't know why R is not for rotation. So that's the hotkeys. Uh, yeah, so I think now we have some idea on what we can do here. And for example, if I want to have more levels in my closet, I can just duplicate uh, my cube kind of, and then place it here. And now for example, you want to have two uh, let's say levels above this level, and you want to have equal distance between them. You cannot do it with your eyes, because no matter how much you just change the position of the objects, there is going to be a difference between them if it's important for you. So now you can see here, for example, the position is 0 along the y-axis, which is the up vector, this green one here. The next one is, I would say, for example, should be on 0.6, and then the next one, oh, not, the next one should be in 1.2. Now you can see it's completely the same. But if I wanted to place it freely myself, it's going to be really hard. I don't have any idea on how to kind of make it pretty much the same, which may not be really important for your work, but I'm just saying, if it's important, then you should consider maybe using numbers to place and scale objects more accurately. Okay, let's not get too far, and let's see if you have any question. Are there any concerns, any problem? I'm just worried that I'm maybe going too fast. So please again tell me if it is.
Uh, I just have a question. Sorry, we're
Mhm.
kind of backtracking a little here. I'm a little confused. How did you make the like rectangular indent thingy? Uh,
Yeah,
like
how
the
did you
space.
make the hole inside of the big rectangle?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, sure. So let me just create another cube. So let's say in this cube I want to make another hole. So I would duplicate it first and then scale it to something, for example, 0.9, 0.9. You can see it's kind of there. I would just bring it a little out, because if you don't do it, you may just make a, let me show you. You may just make a hole that doesn't have any, let's say, wall in the forward or backward side of it. So I would just move it a little forward and then click on the first cube, then second one, go to the mesh, booleans, and then difference. Now you can see this hole in this cube.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other question? Just looking at my notes to see if I have missed anything. Again, if you think it should be kind of slower, please say that, because you may find it. I mean, if you just always get behind back, it's maybe hard to follow the labs in the next weeks. And also, continuing with the controls in the scene, I forgot to say all of them. completely. So again, Alt and Left mouse would give you the option to rotate around objects. Alt, no, sorry, without Alt, even with scrolling, you can zoom in and zoom out. I mean, using the scroll button in your mouse. And then Alt and left, sorry, the right button of your mouse, the right mouse button will also do the same, I believe. So again, the Alt and left would rotate, the scroll would zoom in and zoom out, and also the Alt and right button is also the same. So there is also one another control, Alt and clicking on the middle mouse button, the scroll bar, would give you this pan movement if needed. So if you just want to move around the scene, that's the way to do it. So for example, if I want to go back here and then get kind of near to back of something, so these are the options that you have to go around objects and take a look at them. Okay, I think everything is covered here, and there is also another kind of interesting use of using numbers or even those arrows. So for example, if I want to have a small ball over this kind of level, what I can do is to make a sphere here, and then if I want to go with hand, I can just, oh, sorry, not this one, I can just make it smaller. Oh yeah, there is also one other thing that may be useful. And then I can move it a little upward and see if I can make it in a way that it doesn't go through the level, but you can see it still seems that's going into the level. And if I go a little up, it may seem that it's kind of floating in the air. So let's say if you take a look at this one, this part, it says 0.131, and if I remember correctly, let's just look at here. Sorry, where was that? The point here. Yeah. So the height is 1. So 1 times 0.131, it seems that the height is 0.131. And looking at the sphere, it's 0.28. So let's just make it into 130. So if I want to place it correctly at the place I want, I should calculate half of 130, which is 65, 0.065, I mean, and then add to the half of the scale of this object. So this one should be 0.64. So 0.64 plus 0.65. I think it wouldn't work. Maybe. What's the problem? I just want to make sure that don't make any mistake, because it should be around that number. Let's see what happens. So 64 and then 65 would be 129. Let's see if that works or not. I don't think, because it should go through the floor. Okay. So what's the problem here? Let's take a look at so the radius is 1. It's so because the radius is 1, it means that the diameter is 2. So sorry, we should do 2 times 1 0.0128 divided by 2, which would be 0.128 plus 65, which would be maybe let's just use calculator. Oh, sorry. 65, 0.193. Yeah. So if you want to place objects exactly, let's say over a level, you should maybe work with numbers. That's kind of a way to go. So yeah, but that should be it for this example. And if there aren't any question, I think we can go forward for making our snowman. So the only mistake I made was that the sphere's radius was 1, not its diameter. So I should just use this one 0.28 plus 0.065, which would be 0.193. It's kind of hard to remember all these numbers and say them correctly. Okay, any question, any problem? Uh, the last thing to mention here is that if you find these arrows kind of too small or too big, you can uh, make them bigger or smaller by the plus and minus keys on your keyboard. And I believe by doing that, I mean, if you have bigger arrows, you will have kind of more accurate control on how you are going to move your object. So if it is smaller and I move my mouse, it seems that it's just moving a little more. And yeah, but I think it's not really a big difference. But yeah, if you just want it to be bigger or smaller, that's also the keys to use. Yeah, so that's all for this scene. And if there are no questions, let's just make a new scene and make our snowman there. Okay, it seems everyone is fine. And yeah, I will talk about that part in the snowman example. So starting with the snowman, obviously the bottom part would be a sphere, and I want it to be kind of bigger, so I would use the scale and would increase it informally, I mean scale it up informally, sorry, informally, no, uniformly. And then what I can do is to either create another sphere or duplicate it, but I think duplicating is kind of easier. So I have duplicated my sphere and move it upward, and then scale it down to have our middle kind of ball here. And I think it's better to move it a little upward as well, sorry. Okay, and then pretty much the same as what we did in the for the previous sphere. Just just decrease the size a little here. It should be 18 a little here. Yeah, that should be okay. I guess maybe that's up to you on how you're designing it. And honestly, I'm not an artist, so I'm not very good at these things to make very good looking shapes, but I think that would work. So these are the three spheres that we use for putting our let's say three main uh, balls of our snowman. And then what we are going to do is to add eyes and a nose to our snowman. So first let's go with the eyes. So for eyes, I can say maybe the easiest way is to again duplicate this sphere and make it a lot smaller. Now I should move it forward to see how it is going. Yeah, it's still big, so let's just make it smaller. Okay, and let's just put it here. But I want my kind of uh, snowman's eye to be let's say smaller along this dimension. So I would just shrink it along this axis and move it backward until it reaches the snowman. You should just take a look at, maybe you should just move it a little. Okay, just play with it a bit so that you make sure that it's placed correctly. And then what I'm going to do is to rotate it a bit, maybe, and then because we just want it to be placed correctly. Oh, not that much, maybe. Placed correctly on our snowman. Let me just take a look at here. What I'm going to do is to, yeah, maybe rotate it a bit. And also it's important to look at your objects from different angles to make sure that it's kind of making sense for you. So it's not making sense for me actually. I'm just playing with the rotations a bit. And maybe I should make it a little smaller along the side. Dimension. Okay, and maybe rotate it a little bit more. Okay, it's kind of completely out. Yep, so again, maybe you can kind of place it a little better than me. I'm just trying to see if I can make it work a little better here. Maybe from the standing points, if you look at from the front, maybe it's better to uh, have it kind of a little out of the snowman because we want to see it kind of mm, more like an eye that you can see from in the snowman. So let's see how it goes. Mm, just trying. Okay, maybe moving it a little down as well. Solve it. Yeah, again, it's kind of hard for me, but I'm just trying like this to see how it goes. Okay, I think that's fine. I would go with it. So I'm sure that you can make better ones. So to make it kind of symmetric, I would duplicate this sphere, and then again by recognizing the axis, you know this red one is just the x-axis, which is the first number. And since our all of our main spheres here are just placed in the zero, in the 0 point along the x-axis, what you can do is to just um, put it as 0.344, so that these two objects are going to be exactly symmetric in the space. And yeah, you can see that it's not placed correctly. It's because that this rotation for the sphere should be also minus, because uh, rotating it clockwise and counterclockwise should be, the rotation should be uh, clockwise for the, let's say, left part, and counterclockwise for the right part, to make them kind of symmetric. And I guess the nose part would be a little easier than the eye part. So what I would do is to just use this cone here, and again, if you want to play with the numbers, you can see these numbers here. So I would say I want the radius, which is the radius of this bottom circle here, to be around 0.1, and the height would be around 0.2, maybe a little longer. Let's just play it with this. Okay. And then what I would do is to just move it here and do a rotation along this axis. Again, along the x-axis. That's correct. But again, if you try to do it exactly 90 degrees, you won't be successful at all. You see, for example, it's 84 for me. But you may even prefer to don't have exactly 90 degrees of rotation, because in the real life, if you just put a caret, for example, for your snowman's nose, it's not going to be 90 degrees as well. So it's up to you on how you're going to design your scene, your kind of storyboard, and how your model is going to look like. But yeah, it's up to you. But I'm going to go with the numbers here. So I think this is the main parts of our snowman. And let me just bring the assignment here, sorry. Okay. Um, you can see that it's kind of asking you to design objects which different, let's say, elements have different colors. So let's see how it works and how we can, let's say, assign colors to objects. So, objects are shown with materials. All of these 6 objects that we have in our scene have the same material, and I think it's Lambert 1 here. So if you change the, again, let me go back here. In the Lambert 1, if you change the color, I would guess everyone, yeah, color of all the objects would change. So let's just go back to the gray color. What I'm going to do is to try to make the eyes black first. So I think maybe there should be other ways as well, but for me it's the easiest one. You just let's just go back. You just right click on your object and then go all the way down to assign new material. We will go with the Lambert because the Lambert is the default material here in Maya. So we will just make another Lambert material here, which you can see it's called Lambert 2. What I'm going to do is to just make it black. And I'm going to do the same for the eye, the left eye. So assign existing material instead of assigning new material, and I would make it as Lambert 2. So now you can see that the eyes are black. And let's say if we want to have all the spheres to be kind of whiter, because the snow is kind of white, so we can make it a little brighter. But I won't recommend you to change the default material. So you can just click by pressing shift. You can click and select multiple spheres, and then change the color to white. Oh no, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. And then yeah, assign new material for them, Lambert, and then change the color to white for all of them. Yeah, and that's obviously exactly the same for the nose. Maybe we want it to be orange. Let's just see if I can manage to get a good orange color here. I think that's okay. And yeah, that's the main and the basic snowman that we are going to create. Any question?
Hi. Maybe not for this specific assignment, but in the future, if we maybe use like a material from like an external source, would we need to cite that?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Whatever you
Okay.
use, yeah, outside of the let's say the what we provide to you, or uh, the other ones that you haven't created yourself, you should cite them. And any other question? Okay, if not, I would talk a little about these, let's say, collision points between these two, let's say, spheres. You can obviously go for example, mesh and then booleans and union. So if you, let me just go into the objects, you can see that it just destroyed the lower and upper part of these two spheres. And if, let's just go back, sorry, let me just go into, you can see that the bottom part is kind of seen here, and the upper part is here. But yeah, what I'm saying is that these intersections between different objects, which is the same as, for example, the nose and the head, are kind of bad, because when you're animating your characters in future, you will see kind of some let's say bad shapes from your bad let's say outputs from your character, because these let's say vertices, some come out, some just get in to your object, and that's not what you really want. So for now it's completely okay for this week's lab, but in future we should, I mean, you should avoid doing it, especially for the objects that are going to be animated in your scene. So that's one thing to consider. And since we haven't played with this cylinder yet, sorry, let's just go forward for creating a hat for our snowman. Just bring it up, yeah. And what I'm going to do is to scale it down along the y-axis. Where is it? This one, okay. And then should bring it down. Maybe it should be a little taller, and also a little smaller along the XZ plane. So again, you see that by using this let's say rectangle or cube here, I can scale my object along I mean uniformly along the both Z and X axis. But if you don't do it, then let's say if I just change it along the Z axis, it's really hard for me to then go back and match it along the X axis. So that's one thing to consider. Let me just bring it a little down and maybe a little bigger, and you can just duplicate it and bring it upward, make it smaller along this axis and taller along this one. And yeah, so that's the hat. And again, you can go for putting maybe a brown or whatever color you want over the snowman's head. And that's it for now. Any question, any problem? Okay, if not, there is also this tube object here that we may use it for making a scarf around the snowman's neck. So let's just use it and see how it works. Let me just bring it up. So you see it's kind of how to say, it's kind of thick, and we don't have a kind of thick scarf in real life. So what I mean, if you try to scale it, you would scale the whole object, not the radius of these circles going all around the snowman. So one thing that could really help here is to going back into these options. And honestly, I forgot what are the options, but let's see how it works. Yeah, so I think that's what needed here. Let me just, yeah, so I would just make it maybe 0.25 and make the radius to I don't know, maybe 64. I think that's okay. Yeah, it seems okay to me, at least. And also scarves have tails. Uh, and let's just make it with a very simple cube. You know, it's just designing very simple objects for now. And just bring it out to see how it's shaped. I think that should work. And then let's just rotate it along this axis. That's not the best one, but I think that works somehow. Along the yeah. So if you haven't worked with these axis yet, maybe it's going to be a little confusing for you, but with some training, I think you will finally uh, get comfortable with them. Yeah, again, it's not very beautiful, but that's it for the snowman that we wanted to create for today. So yeah, we have a scarf and use a cube for its tail, 2 cylinders for the hat, 3 spheres for the main, let's say, big balls of the snowman, big snow balls of the snowman, and 2 kind of scaled and manipulated spheres as the eye, and 1 cone as the nose. And these are the 2 other primitives. But the first one is just a plane. Let me bring it out. Yeah, you can see it here. It's just a 2D object, not a 3D one, so you can maybe make it bigger. It is used for, let's say, designing a floor for your scene if needed. And that's one. And the other one, I think, is just a disc or a circle. And that's it. That you can, let's say, play with it if you need a circle in your scene. What else? And also that's good to kind of move all the objects kind of upper so that it doesn't go through the grid here. It's not really important, but I think the rendering it's good to kind of assume this grid here as the floor of your scene, and you don't go below it. I think it makes managing your scene a little easier, but that's not again really important. Let me again take a look at my notes here to see if there is anything remaining. There's also one thing that may be useful, but let me just see if I can find it. Tool settings. Wasn't that one? I think. Yeah, it's that one. Okay, window, and then tool setting, and then putting it here beside it. So you may also find using these numbers. For example, let's say if you want to where is the object? For example, this one. If you want to rotate your objects along not the center of your let's say sphere, you can edit the pivot. You can, for example, move it here and then now try to rotate it. You can see that it rotates along that point that I mentioned. Sorry, not using shift. Sorry. Yeah, and you can see that it just rotates along the point I wanted it. So I mean, this tool setting is going to be used in the future, but it's not maybe really important for today's lab. Okay, and I think we have finished with the uh, lab today. Sorry, I just want to make sure that I haven't missed anything. Yeah, okay, yeah, there is one another thing that I think it's obvious, but sometimes that you don't see your objects in the scene. For example, maybe it's in another object, or maybe, for example, in future, if you have layers, you may unintentionally have made them invisible. You can always use this outliner to find your objects here. And also don't follow what I have done here. For example, I just didn't save my scene. That's going to be a real mistake, especially when you're doing complex things, and you may put several hours for that. So one thing around about the projects, if there are no questions. Any question, any problem? Okay, so try to make your groups as fast as you can. Just try to find some teammates, and beside that, don't try, I mean, in the future when you learn a little, we all like to make astonishing and very beautiful, let's say, animations and uh, scenes, but don't try to compare yourself with giant big companies such as Disney, Pixar, or whatever. There are I mean, there are several people there which they are very professional in their work, and if you just try to do it, then you're going to just get exhausted in making your scene more complex and then managing it, which obviously is going to be kind of impossible. So, a as a recommendation, just try to uh, keep your characters less than three. So at most, put three characters or three moving objects, animated objects in your scene, because managing all of them and syncing them together is really hard. And yeah, whatever you do, just try to uh, maintain a good quality, and I think you will see based on the previous projects. I think you have saw a few of them. You have seen a few of them today, but I think I will show a few of them in the next weeks in our next labs. So try to kind of have the same or even if possible better quality than the previous ones, but don't go that far that make the project impossible for you. And yeah, I think that should be it. Any question? No problem. Any concern? Let me just open the Discord and see if there is any written message here. It doesn't seem to be any. So one thing to say as well, don't go with the snowman for the assignment because we have done it today together. Just try to do something else in order to just have some exercise. And I think what really helps you is to try to make different simple objects for now, and get kind of used to the Maya and its interface. And then I believe by getting more comfortable, you can go forward easier. And yeah, that should be it. If there are no more questions, we are at the end of today's lab. So we will finish today one's a little easier. Hi, yeah, go ahead.
So can you show me how to how to color the nose and eyes again?
Sure. Let's just go with the hat. That's not different. Yeah. So I just sorry. Right click on the object. First click and first select the object and then right click on it. Go down until you reach this assign new material. Then it's up to you. You can use font, Biblin, and Lambert. They're kind of different, but not that much. That makes coloring them different. But again, go for Lambert if that's not important for you. And then, for example, you can make it yellow here or whatever you want. And if you want to assign an existing material to your object, do the same. Select your object, go down until you've reached the assign existing material, and then go to Lambert 5, which we just created. And you will see that the new material also applies for the lower part of our hat as well.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other question?
So for the assignment, we only need to make one character, right?
Yeah.
Or okay.
But and then just I think it says let me just, you should upload a screenshot of your model, and that should be it, I think. Yeah. And as as a good exercise, try to make it as interesting as you can, just using these primitive objects.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other question? No problem. And also don't forget to, and maybe it's better to say, don't hesitate to mention your concerns, whatever they are, either to me or to Hania. I think we all here to help you, and we will consider what you say and try to help you as best as we can. And if you are not kind of happy to say things in Discord, you can also email either of us or both of us. And yeah, that's it.
Thanks for the lab.
Yeah, you're welcome. Okay, so I'm just going to stop